Hello, Hornby fans. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Buffers. This month, I'm joined by your friend and I, Sam, one of our Hornby designers. We talked about TT, his involvement in TT, and he gave us a little update on his Deltic. So enjoy. So, Sam, welcome to Beyond the Buffers.
Hi.
This is the first time you've been here.
Yes, it is. Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me.
That's all right. No, we've been trying to get you on the show for a little while.
It's been a little while. I'm very busy.
Now, people at home who are listening or watching will probably know you from not only our YouTube videos, but Hornby, A Model World.
Yes, I was one of the unfortunate stars of the show. But it was good. A good experience. Nice to show what we do and get people involved. Because you meet lots of people who've sort of been in the hobby, maybe got out of it at various points. They've seen us on TV and then got back into it, which is great.
So for those who may not have seen you on any of those things, just tell us a little bit more about what you do at Hobby, how long you've been here.
So I've been at Hornby for 4 years now. I started in November 19, so almost 4 years. And I'm a product designer. So I started off designing double O products. And then when the TT sort of started, I was there doing my first TT projects with the wagons. And then so I've sort of seen that through all the way from almost the start to where it is now.
And what were you doing before?
Before I was at university, I went to Bournemouth University, started product design, which is a bit like DT from school.
Yep.
And I was doing that for 3 years, and I worked in the automotive industry, making lights for lorries and caravans on a placement year, which was very different from this, but equally as fun and a completely different experience.
So what drew you to the job at Hornby? Did you know the product before? Did you know the brand before?
Yes, I think like everybody, you grow up with a Hornby set or a Scale Electric set or a bit of Airfix, which are all the brands that we have here. And like everybody, I had a couple of each. And then when I finished uni, it was, there's a job going at Hornby. That'd be a great one to have, because I've always been into making and doing things. Massive Lego kid growing up. So Hornby seemed like the next step. It's like working in a toy shop, which is always really fun, because you get all these products on your desk. You get to play with them, test them, run them, break them. Shouldn't say that, but they sometimes get a bit broken. And yeah, so all so that people can then play with them like I played with toys back when I was younger.
Nice. So I've asked Phil before, I think on the previous episode, what if he remembered his first day. Now, he's been here a lot longer than you, so I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you remember what it was like when you first started at Hornby?
Yeah, my first day was, it was the 11th of November. It was a Monday. I was told to come at 9:30, but they were actually expecting me at 8:30. Okay. So I came in and everyone thought I was late already, so not really a good start. I got a tour, which was always quite nice. Met everybody. Everyone's so friendly. Yeah. And then by the end of the day, I was already starting on my first actual project, which was the Mark 1 restaurant buffet.
Oh, wow.
So sort of jumped in 2 feet first. Wow. No sort of, do you know the software? Do you know how to read an engineering drawing? It was just a pack of research. Here you go, make it.
Really?
And then that took me maybe 3 weeks, because it was quite a simple project, relatively speaking, where the body of a Mark 1 is the same. We've done that many times before. So I had to move some windows, make a new seat unit, put some more detail on the chassis for the gas bottles and the water tanks and things.
So trial by fire.
It was a trial by fire. Then the second week we went up to Epping-Ongar to actually measure one, because there's one up in a siding there. It was a horrible, wet, rainy day in November, which was quite horrible. But no, it was good. Yeah. Good fun.
And how did it feel, that project, once you'd sort of done that, got to it, seen it, the whole process, if that was your first?
That was really good. Because that was, my first year was stunted by COVID. So I had 4 months in the office and then working from home. So all of the test shots came through, got sent to my house. Yeah. All the running samples got sent to my house, which I had to bring them back to Margate to test on test track, because I don't have such an extensive track at home. Yeah. And then it was quite nice, because that Christmas we helped in the warehouse to send stock out. Oh, nice. So I saw the very first box of my product on the warehouse shelf, which was a really, really cool experience. Yeah. And now whenever I go into the shops, I go, seen one there.
So you're we've had a few people talk about the COVID era of designing and things like that. I think you told me before how long you'd been here. You've been here that long, and now looking, it's probably because you wouldn't have really interacted with me for those few months.
Absolutely, yeah.
How different was that?
Well, yeah, it was quite interesting, because obviously learning it from in the office to start with was great, and then you sort of dumped in, here you go, on your own, and everyone's available by phone call, but it's when you speak on the phone, it's harder to show people things, harder to explain things, particularly if you're new, like I was. But the other guys, Phil and Steve, were really, really good, very helpful during that time.
Were they your mentors?
Yes, they were, yeah. And it's like because you don't see everybody every day. You get on the phone to one of them and you're talking for an hour, just
Yeah.
about life, the universe, and everything. Then so that was it. So days I had to call Phil were good days.
What was probably the most challenging part for you of that first?
Um, I think assessing the samples for the first time, because that's the time when I had 3 projects all come in at the same time, roughly the same time, from the same manufacturer. So I had the Mark 1 RB, I had the Churchill's funeral van, which was my third project, and also the 4 and 6 wheel coaches. So I had 3 big, quite major projects that I had to go and check everything for. Luckily, I did all the design work beforehand,
Yeah.
so I sort of knew what I was looking for. But that was quite tricky, particularly because that summer was really, really hot.
Yeah.
So the room I was in, I was living at home then, and the room is in the loft. So it's sort of a pitch roof like that, with a Velux window. Because it was so hot and it's in the loft, the sun beats down, it gets so sweaty. So I closed the blind to try and keep the heat out. Then you can't really see the rivets. So it was horrible, really quite horrible.
So were you sat designing in your underwear?
I won't. Yeah, yes, yes, I was. Yeah, I was. Let's not lie about that. Which is also quite sticky on a leather seat.
So obviously now you've been here 4 years, and at what point did you start working on TT out of that?
So I started the first TT loco, or the first TT wagons I did were actually from the spare room at home. So I started those probably July 2020.
Right.
Prior to all that, I'd seen Phil working on the A3 and A4 and A8, so I knew that TT was coming. Actually, that's one of the reasons why I was hired, because we had a whole new range coming, and Hornby needed another designer. So it was, let's get another designer in to help with that. So that's kind of. So actually, I knew about TT from my interview, and I said, "Why are you looking to hire?" And I said, "Oh, we've got a new scale coming."
Yeah.
So obviously didn't tell anyone because I didn't really know much about it at that point. But so I've known about TT for almost 4 years now.
That's cool, because that shows the timeline of how long to get to that point.
Yeah.
Now we're a year in. We only announced it last year. No
Yeah,
one knew about it.
Absolutely.
But we've been developing it for that long.
And the fact that Phil was already working on those locos from prior to me even having my interview shows that it predates me by some few years too.
Yeah.
So it's been a long project in the pipeline, stunted again by COVID, which is sort of the bane of everyone's life at the time.
Yeah.
But now we're here now. It's we're in sort of the second wave of products, which is exciting. The first lot has been dripped out over the year, and now we've got the HSTs and the Class 50s and the Class 66 and the Duchess and the coaches to go with them all coming out.
Nice. And so what's the difference for you, having worked on 00 and TT? What are the challenges?
So the design principles for working on 00, they're quite the same. So you've got the wall thicknesses have to be the same. You've got the motors. Motors obviously going to need to go in there, gears and all that. But where the tricky part comes in is making everything smaller. It's not as simple as just hitting a button and going, tick, that's it, scale that down.
Yeah.
Because where we normally have a 1.2 wall thickness in 00, that scales down by 0.635 into TT scale. And then that is about 0.75 mil, which really is too thin for a wall. So we have to up everything to 0.8.
Right.
You've got a rivet in 00, the smallest you can go in moulding is 0.1 mil in diameter. You scale that down, that's less than that. So you then have to make all the rivets bigger to match.
Right.
So the thinnest you can put a rib detail might be about 0.3. You scale that down, that's then 0.1. So you have to it's a balancing act with how you're going to increase the detail so it doesn't look over intrusive, or that looks like a massive rivet or a massive detail. So it's quite a balancing game. On top of all that, you've then got thicknesses of windows, which if you've got a chassis on the inside, you can't push it out as far. You've got a motor, because motors, you can't just scale down a motor. You have to find a completely different motor, which has a different RPM. The smaller the motor, the higher RPM it has. With the higher RPM, is the less torque. So it's all the sort of balancing act between getting things right. It's not as easy as it seems by going, just scale it down.
And how did you feel when we launched TT and it was out there and everything? Like, how was that feeling for you?
I was really proud, because it's something that I've been working on for 2 years at that point. We'd got 2 more members of the team in design team since then. They started just after the last COVID lockdown finished. So they've almost exclusively worked on TT projects. So for them to be able to see their product in the range for the first time was really, really cool. I've had a couple of launches prior to then, but they could say, oh wow, and see people going, oh wow, Hornby doing Class 66 in TT, Hornby doing a Duchess in TT. For Brad and Louis, who are our 2 newest designers, that was really cool for them.
Oh, awesome. And usually I have to pre-warn to say, we'll talk about something that you've worked on or you're working on. And don't say anything about anything that we're not allowed to talk
Yep,
about.
absolutely.
But we are allowed to talk about what you've got in
Yes.
front of you. So take it away. What do we have in front of us for people that are listening?
So these are the first decoration samples of our new TT Class 50.
Nice.
So we've got one with a big BR livery, we've got a GBRF, and we've got a nice green Sir Edward Elgar. There we go. Haven't got my glasses on, so that's it. So these are the first 3 Class 50s we'll be releasing. All 3 of them come in DCC ready and DCC fitted with our Next 18 HM7000 controller and speaker. So a little bit later on, we'll show the running of that, show the sound profile, and also the Mark II coaches that go with them.
So you worked on the full project of these?
Yes, the full project, yep. So we started off looking at the 00 CAD and then went up to Berry to look at Class 50 and then worked with the Class 50 Fund to get some scan data, 3D scan data to help with the shape. Because our old Class 50 is a few years old now, so there's improvements we can make and more detail we can add even at a smaller scale.
So how does sort of differing, you're talking about scaling it down, how does it differ then in terms of a Flying Scotsman, a steam loco? Things like how, cause obviously it's a completely different shape.
Yeah, so obviously a diesel, different from a steam loco, because it's got 2 bogies they've both got gears in, so you put a big motor in the middle.
Right.
And then with that, you've got flywheels and prop shafts, whereas a Flying Scotsman, you've got just a motor and then gearing inside the chassis. The benefit with doing a big diesel like this is that you can have a lot more weight. More weight means more traction, which means more it can pull.
Nice.
So all the free space inside this is just die-cast to get all that weight in. Right. It weighs a whopping 197 grams. So we've comfortably been pulling 12 Mark IIs at a prototypical scale speed.
Nice.
Obviously, it wouldn't be pulling 12 in real life,
Yeah.
but that's all we had to hand to sort of load test it.
So we talked a bit before, but just run us through that kind of process as well again from when you first start. We're doing this. This is the project. Sam, you're the guy that's doing it.
Yeah.
How does that process go?
So once we find out what project we're doing, we'll get a research pack and then go and do a research trip to measure it, to scan it, to sort of get your measuring sticks all over, take a load of pictures, meet people that might work on them, work in preservation railways, or have knowledge much more than we do on each subject, but specifically for different variations. Because at some point during the lives of each of these locos, they'll be changed, modified, bits knocked off, bits put on, lights changed. For example, this one started off with a head code, with some numbers on the top, and now it's got lights. Right. A big headlight was put on the front. So all these variations we have to design now, so that in the future we can release it, and you could be surprised. Oh, they're doing this one. Nice. So that's where we start. And then we get back to the office, and then start with what are the basics of the design going to be. Okay, it needs to go this speed. So these worked at around 100 miles an hour, but then we need to increase that scale speed by about 10%, so that when it's hauling coaches, then it doesn't lose speed. Yeah. So then we find a motor that's suitable, find the right RPM, then use the diameter of the wheel, and then work out the gearing, the gear ratio to get that speed. Nice. And that's the start. And build up the gear train, build up the bogies, and start from there. And it's quite a fluid process, really, because you start off putting your wheels and gears in place and build the gearbox. And then you might realise later on that actually your chassis is going to clash with the way you've designed the gearbox. You need to change the gearbox just a little bit. Yeah. But the chassis needs to be a certain way to fit a certain part in. So yeah, it's quite a nice process, really. Yeah. And then at the end when it breaks and it all goes red on the CAD system, you think, oh no, and you've got to go back and fix it all. And
then how many sort of on average sample sort of rounds are there usually?
Yeah, so the design process will take probably took about 4 months. Right. And then we got it sent off, and then within 3 months we had the first shot samples. So that's when I look at them, I check all the rivets are there, I check some of the parts fit together. Yep. If it's got defects in the mouldings like sinkage, or if there's extra parts of the sprue that have been left on, make notes of that. Mm-hmm. And then they'll send back the running sample. So they'll have taken on board what I've said, and then sometimes they make the modifications before, sometimes after. Yep. Then we'll get a running sample. So for this one, we've had one round of shots because everything was actually really quite good to start with, and then this is the third running sample. So the first one was good. It was really good actually. We showed that on the engine shed, not the engine shed. What's it called? Crikey, what's it called?
Train terminal.
Train terminal. Yeah, we've shown that on the train terminal blog, which was really good. That had quite a funny quirk with it, where they'd used the body of the Class 50 to practice painting for the Mark II coaches. Right. So that had effectively what was an intercity livery, which the Class 50 never ran in real life. In preservation, it was painted like that.
Nice.
So some people said, "Oh, it's an unreleased livery." Well, no, it's probably not ever going to be released, but it's just quite a funny little story if you know about trains. So we had that, and that was pretty good. So we tested that, and there were some issues with the speed, which is fine. You'd sort of expect that at that stage.
Yeah.
So we can change the motor RPM by a little bit, and then we'll get another one. There's quite a lot of electronics on board because we've also got with speaker and the decoder, but there's the lighting, there's cab lighting, there's the headlights both front and then the trailing lights, and the head code too. So we have to make sure all those work with the decoder, both under the DCC on the HM7000 DCC app and also on the standard DCC controller, as well as in DC mode. Nice. There's quite a lot of testing we have to do, and then the subsequent samples have been improving on those.
Yeah, there's a lot under the hood there.
There is a lot under the hood.
No, you just look at the size of it. I think how do you even get in all of that? And again, that's obviously part of your skills.
Absolutely.
To be able to do that.
I don't know if you said that's because you made probably an inverted train pun there. A lot under the hood because one of these was called hood.
Oh really?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, there you go. Well, I knew.
Yeah.
I think that's what it sounded. That's what.
Yeah.
So, how do you? And I know this probably isn't your side of things, but how is a livery check? Why? How do you pick these three? What's making it right? These three are the ones we're going for first, or
Right, so picking the livery is rather above my pay grade. But I can tell you that each of these liveries is representative of an era where the product, or where the actual Class 50s were. So this is the oldest one. Yep. It's from around the 80s. This is one of the most modern ones because it's the GBRF, which is still used today. And this one is a more traditional livery, but on a more modern build. So that ran in preservation. So it's the newer version of it, but it looks like it's old. So it's quite a nice one. Yeah. So that covers three main eras of the timeline.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
New scale.
Yeah.
That's the thing with TT, isn't it? Because it's a complete new scale. There are so many things we could do with it.
Yep.
You want to kind of work around that and give them a little taster of each of the different. For anyone at home that's got those different eras or wants to do those different
Absolutely.
eras.
And it also links up with the rolling stock we have. So this one would run with the Mark II coaches, which we've got in the Intercity livery and also the blue and grey livery. So then we can also run those with other products. For example, the HST obviously has Mark III coaches to go with it. Yeah. And then we've also got wagons, and some, I guess in preservation, it ran with wagons to do sort of the dirty work on the GBRF line.
Nice. So what's your favourite part of this model?
That is a really good question.
If there is.
There is. I think because this will be the second diesel TT loco we've done. So the HST is very slick, very streamlined, and that was what it was, a high-speed train. But this Class 50, it's a lot more practical. It's a little bit older than the HSTs, I think. Okay, fact check that one. But because it's obviously not a high-speed train, it doesn't have to be as streamlined. So on the front, you've got the jumper cables, you've got handrails, you've got handrails on the doors, you've got the windscreen wipers, you've got on the buffer beam, there's all of the pipes, which are all accessory bag items, but they can be fitted if you need, or if you want to have them displayed. And that is the first time in TT scale that we've done that level of detail. And they are really tiny. I'm sure the guys on the assembly line hate me for it, but it looks really, really impressive. We've got separate lamp brackets too, so it looks nice. And that's getting that, and being able to mould that as well, sort of making it small enough that it doesn't look oversized, but big enough to mould without looking ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that was one of the first things I noticed when I started seeing samples of TT was, no offence to it, I felt quite, if you're going to go smaller, how are you going to get that detail?
Yep.
And actually, to me, they're just as detailed, and that's an impressive feat to get down to that size.
Yeah, they are. It's quite impressive, really. I think because I don't have the biggest patience when it comes to assembling these things. I have to sort of take them apart for testing. But then sitting there with tweezers and a bright light so I can see what I'm doing, it takes an awful lot of patience, which I have hats off to the manufacturers in China because I couldn't do it.
So from this point now, you've got these in front of you, what will the next steps be then?
Yeah, so we're now in October and the autumn show's coming up. So these will be on display at Milton Keynes for the Great Electric Train Show, at what is the? Hang on, can I get these right? So Milton Keynes is the Great Electric Train Show.
Yep.
Gaydon is the Great British
Yep.
one, and then also Whalley in
Yep.
November. So they'll be on display there, and
Nice.
also in Glasgow in February for Model Rail Scotland. But you can see them at our stands at the shows, and we'll have more content on YouTube to see them. And then soon, at some point, they will be released, although I don't know when that will be.
And are you working on anything else that we've already announced that we can talk about?
I've just finished working on the Deltic, the Double O Deltic.
Nice, yeah.
So I finished that a few months ago now. So that's sort of in the process of being made.
That's a very popular one.
It is a very popular one. It was a really, really cool project to work on because in terms of design of a locomotive, it being a prototype, it was quite cool to see how the technology from ships were used and applied in railway land.
Yeah.
So that was quite interesting. And then going up to Shildon, to the Museum of Locomotion, to actually see it, measure it, scan it, get inside it.
Yeah.
It was all good. So we'll have some information on that coming hopefully quite soon.
Would you like to make that in TT?
Actually, I think that'd be a really fine one to make in TT.
Yeah.
There's already an N scale
Okay.
Deltic, so it's a bit bigger, so it'd be a bit heavier.
Nice.
And all the detail that I put on it, you can put in TT.
Yeah.
Obviously, some of the tricks like working fans would be a bit too small to make in TT.
Yeah.
But that's just one of the compromises, really.
And if I ever asked you what something you would like to make in TT, what would that be? That you haven't done? Or...
The smaller you go in TT, the more challenging it is.
Yeah.
And there'll be a point where it becomes just impossible.
Yeah.
So the smaller you go, the more exciting it is, because that's where the design challenge is.
Yeah.
So something like a rocket
I was
or
gonna
a
say,
lion,
yeah,
that would
yeah.
be really good. I know Phil's got his eye. He did the double O rockets.
Yeah,
He's got his
that
eye
would
on
be
doing that in
impressive.
TT.
Or a Ruston or a...
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty to do in TT, which is pretty much a blank slate.
Yeah.
And all of that. So the Rust and Steve did that in double O.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he'd want to do that in TT. I think that might be just a bit too small for him.
Peckett. That's not a Peckett.
Yeah.
It's already popular.
Yeah. So there's lots of things to do.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm working on some now. Maybe I can't say.
You can't.
Who knows?
Yeah, that's probably the most fun thing I've noticed about TT is there's been a lot of surprises along the way. And I've said plenty of times that there will, I'm sure, be many more surprises for people at home. Yeah. So we can't talk about anything you're working on in the future. You just finished up on the Deltic. You're hoping to attend a few of the shows.
Yep, I'll be at Whalley and I'll be at Model Rail Scotland.
Nice.
So I was at Scotland last year, my first Whalley. So that'll be interesting, being the biggest one in the UK. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Have you been to Whalley? You haven't been to
I've not been to Whalley before,
No,
no,
you've been
because
to-
of COVID, we were not able to do shows.
Yeah.
So last year was my first sort of opportunity to do the shows.
Yeah.
So I signed up for all of them and only
Yeah,
got
yeah.
Scotland, which is fine because Glasgow's a great city.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to Birmingham because it is the big British one.
Yeah, I mean they're all great to go to anyway. But Whalley being the biggest of all of them is quite exciting. Because I went for the first time last year, and I'm going this year as well.
So I'll see you there.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to talk about while we're here? We're obviously celebrating the anniversary of TT.
What else shall we talk about? How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
good.
Yeah, a year on now.
Yeah.
I think for me it's been exciting. The main thing I love is seeing all of you guys and all the team that put it together, and we obviously get to film it all. We get the fun part. You do all the hard work, and we put it on a layout and show it off. But I like being able to celebrate what you guys have done, because it often gets kind of lost that all that work that you guys put in to making sure that these are the best possible product that they can be for the people at home. And seeing that reaction, that what I noticed when we first started going to shows with it was that people were so surprised by it. And there is something about it, I think probably mainly because I guess we've been so used to double O, that then you see this completely different scale, although in other parts of the world they have it, but to see it here and to actually see it physically in front of you, a lot of people are, wow, I didn't expect it to be so detailed. It's nice that they're smaller. It feels better for space and things like that. So it's a year on, as with anything new, there are bumps in the road. But I think what you and the Hornby team have done to get to that place is really impressive.
Oh, thanks.
So yeah, and I like talking to you guys. Yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting you say about the sort of realizing how small it is, because when we design these, it's on a screen.
yeah,
So you don't really appreciate how small it will be. So when you get it 3D printed to test it, and it's like, oh wow, that is actually really, really small. And then people seeing it, that was up in Scotland. That's when we had the HM7000 running the HST for the first time on the layout, and that was great because people can see it in real life. And now it's the TT product's being put into retailers, selective retailers, and more people can see it, and then more people see it and get excited by it, and they can start building their own layouts, which is good. So do you reckon you fancy yourself a layout?
yeah. So I've built some smaller layouts. And I think the idea that you can fit so much more into a smaller space, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I should probably be building one for at least for camera for these guys.
Absolutely.
And I think you can probably have a lot more fun with it as well. Because we do buildings and everything like that as well, which is nice. So you can do the whole sort of layout. I think I'll have to go. We'll make a video out of it. My first TT layout.
Yeah, as a range, there's obviously the locos of all the different eras now. There's the vehicles, there's the buildings, obviously the track, and there's more coming out all the time. So it's a good place to sort of stretch your legs.
Awesome. Well, Sam, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you coming on. I'm sure now with Deltic being well in advance that we'll probably have you on again to talk about that at some point.
I hope so.
If you want to see Sam at any shows, if you're visiting, just come up and say hello. I'm sure anyone can attest that Sam's very open and we'll chat to you about anything at all. So, yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Sam.
That's right. No worries. Thank you very much. And now we'll go and put these on the track and show you more about the Class 50.
Yeah. All right.
That's right.
Cool.
Thanks for that, Mike. I am now on our TT test layout, and I'm going to show you the new Class 50 sample that we were talking about earlier. Here you can see rolling into the station is Sir Edward Elgar with a rake of 4 Mark II coaches. Now currently, we've not got any sound on, we've not got any lights on, and our sound engineer Chris will be shortly arriving to show us how it works with the HM7000 app.
Right, thanks Sam. I'm going to take you through and demonstrate some of the sound functions of the TT Class 50. So first of all, we're going to simulate a cold start. Now I could sit here for hours listening to this, but let's speed it up a bit and get it started. Now that we're running, let's get the loco moving. We can play some horns. Cooling fan. Nice bit of flange grill. What we should find is as the loco comes to a stop, we get a nice timed brake squeal too. Lovely.
Thanks Chris for demonstrating the sounds of the Class 50. Now we're going to have a look at the lights. Much like our 00 model, the TT version has a fully working set of lights, including cab light, headlight, rear trailing light, and also head code light. So as you can see here, the head code light is on, and now the headlight will turn on. Now with the headlight on, we can turn that off again, and then turn the cab light on. So obviously this won't be on when it's running, because otherwise the driver would be fired. But we can also, using our HM7000 decoder, have the rear red trailing lights off when pulling a rake. So we press here, you can see the lights turn off. So here is the demonstration of the TT Class 50 lighting with the head code and the headlight and the cab light on. One cool feature of our new HM7000 decoder is when the loco pulls out the station, the cab light will automatically turn off if you have that setting on. If you pan the camera around, you'll also see the rear red lights are off when it comes back around this bush. That's another great function within the HM7000 control. Thank you for joining me, Chris and Mike, as we looked at the TT Class 50. All 3 liveries will be available soon.
Thank you, of course, to Sam for joining us. Thank you for you at home for joining us. You can watch all of our previous episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and of course, as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.